there, I'm Carla, the Crazy Cross Stitch Lady. Welcome to my craft room. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate your being here, and just pull up a seat, get yourself a drink, and get really comfortable, and let's just share some cross-stitching stuff today. I've got my notes here on the side, so I'm going to be referring to those because I wrote down some things that I just wanted to make sure that I cover today. First, I'm going to start out with a thank you. This is a big thank you. I really want to thank all of you who have recently subscribed to my channel. I really appreciate the support. I'm happy that you're here to join me, and I appreciate the comments that I've gotten from fellow stitchers across the state in Kentucky, and some of you are actually pretty close, so we are neighbors, and I'm happy to be able to make those connections with different stitchers across the state. So last few years, it's just been a really neat experience for me to be able to find other people in the stitching community, because sometimes this, especially in the past, cross-stitching has been a very isolated kind of activity. So it's just been really nice to see this resurgence in the interest in cross-stitching and people finding each other within, I'd say it's probably the last 5 to 6 years or so. So it's just really neat to be able to be active in that community. So thank you very much for joining me. Thank you for the comments. And I've already been given some pieces of advice on some of the things that I've shown, and I really appreciate that. And I always take those into consideration. And it has already helped me with some of the things that I've been working on. So I really appreciate that. I have a shout out. I'm going to try to do this each time that I'm on here with a Flosstube. This one is actually going to Modern Folk Embroidery. Modern Folk Embroidery is it's a company that is run by a man by the name of Jacob de Graaf. He is, I believe he's from the Netherlands. He has a Flosstube channel. He also has a website. He's been designing for several years, and what he does is he takes old samplers. He'll actually go out looking for old samplers to purchase. He purchases these samplers, and then he will create charts for those, because when samplers were first done, they didn't have charts, of course, like we do now, and they would simply they would stitch on them to sometimes they would do it to tell a story. Sometimes they would do it just because young ladies would want to practice their stitches, or if they learned a new stitch, putting that stitch on a sampler was a way for them to record it so they could go back and see how that was done, and that was a reference point for them. So there's a very long and interesting history of samplers, not just overseas where you have a much longer history of things like that, but also here in the States. We have an interesting history of people who created samplers, especially in the 1800s. I love it when I can go into a museum and I happen to see an old sampler that's there. And of course, most of the museums, if they're history museums, it can be a hodgepodge of different things. But I just love it when I can run upon a sampler. And I'm working on my first sampler right now. I wouldn't say that it's those kinds of things really attract me or interest me as much as a stitcher. Excuse me. But I thought I have to do at least one. So I wanted to try it out and see. And so far I have enjoyed it, but I really do, as a history teacher, I really appreciate the history behind samplers. So I just wanted to give him a shout out, and in the notes down at the bottom, I will put his, I'll put a link to his Flosstube channel, and I'll also put a link to his website, so you can go there. And actually, I'm working on one of his pieces right now, which is the sampler. So that is a really good segue to go into the sampler itself. So I will talk about that, and then I'm going to go back and talk. I'll do my whips first. I've just got 2 anyway, and then I'll talk about some of my, I guess you can call it haul. There's not a lot here, but I'll talk about that for a little bit. But right now at least, I just have 2 projects that I'm working on. As soon as I get one of them done, I want to increase that to 4. So I'll have a little bit more to talk to you about than just, these 2. So speaking of Jacob, and actually before I get into that, I just wanted to show you my shirt. You can't see all of it, but it does say a day without cross stitches like, and then kidding, I have no idea. So I like to have some of these cute little stitching shirts to wear either when I go on a retreat or when we have our monthly stitching days. Our local group has a stitching day, so sometimes I like to wear my stitching shirts to those. So why not wear it for my Flosstube? Hey. Okay, so what I'm going to show you, and I think I may have forgotten to show you some of what the pattern is supposed to look like, so I want to make sure that I do that. There was someone who had asked me if I would do that for them so that they could see what the whole pattern is supposed to look like and then see my progress on it. So I apologize for not doing that before if I hadn't done that. So I do want to show this one. This is Letters from the North number 2, which means there was a number 1 that I have not done, but this is number 2. So I'm going to show you. I'm sorry, my nose, I think it's allergies. My nose had just started, of course, after I start recording, my nose starts itching. That's how it works. But anyway, if that's the worst of my problems, I'm good. So this is from Modern Folk Embroidery. So this was designed by Jacob de Graaf, and here it is. I'm gonna get the whole thing in there. Okay, so here's his history behind it. You download this as a PDF. Most of his PDFs, and then what I did was I stapled the packet together. But in the front, he has a letter and he talks about the story behind the sampler before he actually gets to the pattern itself. And so just very neat that he's very conscientious about history and historical items. So this says, Letters from the North is a series of Scandinavian-style cross-stitch samplers, of which this is the first, even though it's number 2. Fascinated by their simplicity and geometric abstraction, I began designing my own samplers with a distinct folk aesthetic. Inspiration for this sampler came from an antique piece of linen on which someone started a sampler but only finished part of the edge. It was this edge that decorates the top and bottom of the sampler. From there, I started designing the alphabets and took inspiration from antique Danish samplers for the decorative elements. Although I have opted for a monochrome red sampler, you can choose any color or a mixture of your favorite colors. Okay, so when he's referring to the top, okay, so that's what he had to start with, was at the very top. And of course, it's also here at the very bottom. And because he designed the rest of it, you can see his name on there. And it says 2010, so that's when he finished it. So this is, it seems like all of his, or most of his, for the most part, he loves to do monochrome. I've seen him he does a lot of red. I'm seeing him do black. And he likes that look. I decided to, since I have a piece of, this is Seafoam Edinburgh linen, it's 36 count. And since I had this really pretty green, I decided to do more fall colors. So I have kind of like a rust color and a yellow and a green, and then there's kind of a more of a brown color. Now, I will tell you, if I had to choose my own color palette and whatever my preference is, it's not going to be this. My preference for color palettes, so my favorite color is purples, so I go for pastels. I love purples and blues and pinks and that kind of thing. But I felt like this the colors just kind of suited this, and I like this green. So I think it's going to turn out all right. But I'm going to show you. First of all, since I've got this editing system that I purchased, and it looks like it's going to work out pretty well. So I'm going to try to put like right here a picture of where I was a month ago on this. And then now I'm going to show you where I am currently. So there's the top border. And then I've got the first alphabet done. And I have started on the next section. This looks like a pot in a way. I'm not sure. I guess that's what it is. But it will also be on this side. And then there's an alphabet in the middle. And I have started, it's going to be green. And I thought, ooh, that green's not going to show up because it's not going to be dark enough. But I think it will. I think it'll show up enough, but it'll still be kind of subtle. I really didn't want anything on here to just go, hello, you know. So I wanted everything, it's, you know, fall, and I just wanted everything to kind of be together in one package. So hopefully I will have that effect. But backing that up, this is what I currently have done. So I'm moving right along on this one. Okay, so that's this. And this other one is my Michael Jackson one. Okay, so I'm very tired right now. Have any of you done some projects where you've been, especially if you are one of those who have done a full coverage, you've done like a Haid or maybe even Mirabilia is not full coverage, but Mirabilia's got a lot going on in it. And I bought a Mirabilia pattern. I haven't done it yet. That would be my first one, but I know it's got a lot going on in it with beads and all of that. But have you ever gotten to the point where you've been working on it off and on for a long time, and you're getting very tired and you just really want it done, but you know, sometimes the thought of picking it up is like, oh, you know, because I'm in Confettiville big time right now. I mean, it's all confetti. And so I'm, you know, I don't park. I've tried to do it. It was not a good experience. I know there are people who park and it works beautifully for them and they love it, and more power to them. It doesn't work well for me. So I'm trying though to work on, well, I'll show you. Okay, so again, I'm going to try to put a picture up here in this corner and show you where I was last month, and it's probably going to look like I haven't done anything, even though I have. So here he is. And when I hold it up in the camera like this, it's looking pretty good. I'm like, oh, I want this done so badly. So what I am having to work on right now is mainly, okay, so I'm going across the bottom, okay? And what I do is the next color I'm on the bottom, I will work on that. And then if the color's also up in here, like in his, let me see where it is. If it's in his shirt, or I'm also working on still some of the microphone and the glove, then I'll go ahead and stitch it up there too, and then move on to the next color. Instead of doing white for the glove, I have done, it's DMC's Etoile, which has a silver like filament going through it. And I don't know if you can see the sparkle in it very well. Maybe if I tilt it, it's there. But I decided, especially like for the bottom part, as I'm stitching this, I'm going across and stitching it. I'm going to go with the colors that are called for within the pattern, because I realize that there also needs to be some sense of dimension to the glove or it won't look right. And so most of this is the HWA, but I also have some regular white in there and some other, so you have a sense of the individual fingers in the glove. And there we are. But I just, I'm going to try to work on him a lot more this week and not worry so much about the sampler and just try to get as much done on him, because I would really like to be able to put this in the state fair this year. But entries must be put in, I believe, by July the 1st, which means I've got to have this done and framed. And also, I wrote a poem to go with this, so I want to frame it too. But he's getting there. But, you know, it's just, I don't know, I'm just getting tired. The pattern was, what I did was I pulled a photo off of the internet. It's a still shot from the Motown 25 special where he performed Billie Jean. And that was the first time that he introduced the moonwalk to the public. Many of you may remember that. You may have watched it live. I watched it live as it was going on, so that tells my age a little bit. I wanted something, I wanted an iconic pose, and I knew for some reason I didn't want him looking right into the camera. I didn't want a photo like that. So that's why he's looking down, he's singing, and that just seems to be an iconic pose for him. And so I had, it was a program called Pattern Maker for Cross Stitch. As far as I know, they no longer produce that program. It was on CD. I uploaded it to an old computer of mine and I did this program. So it did a really good job of transferring that photo into a cross stitch pattern. And the trick was I maxed out the number of colors required, which took me up to probably, I think I have 116 colors in here maybe, but it keeps it from looking pixelated. And so that's what I did, but now that they're defunct and I don't think I have a way to get that off of that computer. I've heard that PC Stitch, and from what I've seen from PC Stitch, it does a really good job of that. And there are more and more people who are coming up with programs where you can transfer photographs into cross-stitch patterns. So it's not as much of an anomaly as it used to be, where it's like, what? You're stitching a photo? Well, a lot more people are doing that. But if you want to do that, what you have to be careful with, this is just from what I found out from my experience, and this is photo number 2 for me. I did one of my brother and his family with the same program with Pattern Maker for cross stitch. But what you have to be careful with is you need to make sure that your fabric count is a little bit higher. I know with the Heaven and Earth designs, it doesn't really matter what fabric count you use. You could use 14 count Aida, you could go all the way up to 22. They recommend 25 count over, doing 2 over 1. And it doesn't really matter. It's not going to pixelate the picture. It's just going to make it either really, really big or a little bit smaller. With these kinds of programs, I've noticed that you kind of have to be careful with your fabric count. 14 count Aida, when I ran it through the program, it was looking pixelated. This is 18 count. And that's about as low as you want to go. I noticed there really wasn't any difference between running 18 count through and 22 count. So I thought, well, we're going to go with 18 count then. And 18 count seems to be the sweet spot. So that would be, of course, if you wanted to do it on linen or something like that, you would do 36 count. I probably will, if I do, I'm planning on doing some more photos, but I won't go lower than 18 count and I max out the colors. If you don't max out the colors, and yes, that's going to increase your color count quite a bit. But when you put all that work into it and you get finished, it's just, it's going to look if your picture looks pixelated, then it just doesn't look good. So I had to be really careful with that. And so it takes a little bit of careful planning, but once you have the pattern and you start in, then you get finished with it, you'll be so happy with the results. And it is worth it. And this one is worth it. But I'm just getting tired. And I know that. But I definitely still, I need to go on and get this done. And as soon as I get MJ done, then I'm going to start a 4-project rotation and try to work on 1 project a week. And that will work better for me because I'm working full time too. And I don't always get a lot of stitching time at night. Sometimes I'm lucky if I can get 30 minutes. And I do like to stitch every day if I can, simply because it's a stress reliever. And so I figure if I give 1 project an entire week, then it gives me some time to actually get some progress done on it. But I don't want to increase my project load anymore because I don't want to take more time away from the Michael Jackson piece. I want to get that done. But I started the Letters from the North because it's a lot easier to focus on and stitch, and sometimes it's a way for me to be able to take a short break from MJ before I go back and tackle him some more. Just gives me a little more energy to go back. Okay, let's go a few more rounds. Let's go a few more colors, and I will eventually get done with it. So hopefully sooner than later. So there it is for the MJ piece. Okay, so I will talk about this in another Flosstube where I do a shout out, but I am part of the embroidery.com. It's the hand embroidery. They do hand and machine embroidery. It's a company, and they have challenges. They have 3 challenges a year. They've got, in February, they've got the Love to Stitch challenge. And then in June, they have the Summer Stitching Challenge. And then in October, they have Witchy Stitchy. And the challenge basically consists of you have to stitch for at least 30 minutes. Every day you get like 3 or 4 off days where it gives you a little bit of grace if something happens. And for Love to Stitch and Witchy Stitchy, if you're able to complete the challenge, and sometimes they'll throw in a couple of other things you need to do, like you need to send like little love notes. With this time it was little love notes where you're making comments on other people's projects on their Facebook page, and it's more of a way just to get people, like helping you get your stitchy mojo back, because you don't have to stitch on any particular type of thing. You stitch on whatever you want, as long as it has needle and thread and you've got fabric. So, crocheting doesn't count or anything like that. It has to be more of the embroidery types of things, like cross stitch and hardanger and things like that. The little reward that you get if you finish the challenge, like there's a needle minder for both the Love to Stitch and the Witchy Stitchy. And, we don't do it for that. We do it because we enjoy stitching, and it really inspires me to see other people's work. I really enjoy doing it, and I like to see other people's progress on things. And so the needle minder to me is just the icing on the cake, but I don't need it. I don't do it for that, but it's really cute. So the Love to Stitch one will be given later, but I wanted to show you the one for Witchy Stitchy, and they've been doing these challenges now for a couple of years, and it's just really cute. This is the new one, and there's a little, I think his name is Boo. He's a little ghost that he's on there, and it has a needle on there. And let's see if I can hold it up where you can see it. So I just thought that was really cute. So I got a needle minder out of it. And so while I was on the site getting my needle minder, I also bought a couple of other needle minders. This one, I have some Irish in my background, and so I saw this and I thought, oh, that's so cute. So I bought this needle minder, And then this one is a sampler, and I can't read what it says at the bottom, but I just thought it was really neat, and I'm currently collecting some needle minders. I think that may be one of my things that I collect. I decided I'm going to buy, you know, you can go online, you can get these tin plates, and I thought I would get one of those tin plates and then just put all my needle minders on there and then hang that on the wall. So this is the other one that I bought. So those are my needle minders, my new ones. I also bought a new pattern. This is called Happy Stitching, and it says happy is the home of a stitcher. And so I thought this would be really cool to put up in my craft room. And as soon as I get time to actually straighten up my craft room, I want to make a few changes to it, then I will take you on a tour of my craft room. That will be part of my Flosstube for one thing. But this is, let's see, who's it by? Sue Hillis Designs. I don't think I've heard of this one. You may have. There's apparently it's a happy series. I'll show you on the back. I'll have to cover part of it, but this is the Happy Stitching. I just really liked that. I thought that was pretty. I want the Happy Easter one, but let's see. I need to cover, there's part of the pattern at the top of this back, and you know, I can't show you that. So let me show you the series. There's a Halloween one, Easter, Valentine's, and then quilting. There's a quilting one. So if you also do quilting, then you might be interested in that. And I think I may get the Easter one because I'm an Easter kind of gal, and I not only love the actual reason for Easter, but I also do love the bunnies and the eggs and, you know, all of that. So love all that stuff. I had to take it out of its plastic so you can actually see it a little bit better. Okay, so now we're up to my stash star of the month. And my stash star this time is from the Stoney Creek collection. I have a couple of magazines that are Stoney Creek. Stoney Creek is right up my alley. I really like the types of patterns that they do. Now, don't get me wrong, I do like primitive stitch, and I have some friends who do nothing but primitive stitch. They eat it up. They love it. And I like it, and I really appreciate it because that's where we started. As far as our stitching history, that's where we came from. So I have a respect and a love for it there, and I want to do some primitive stitch, but it's not really my cup of tea. So I probably won't stitch a lot of it, but I definitely have an admiration for it. But Stoney Creek is kind of more my speed. And this one, I haven't stitched any of these, although I should, because I love music. You know, Michael Jackson piece, I love music. But they have some beautiful pieces. So this whole collection is called Love is the Music. So I wanted to show you the different pieces that are in here. And then one on the back says, music lifts the spirit and brings joy to the heart. So here's some more. I mean, it's got a lot in it. And there's some in the middle. Now, the copyright on this is, well, let me back up and do this. Keep a song in your heart and your days will be filled with joy. And then we hear music with our ears, but feel it with our hearts. Okay, so there's that one. And then I love the piano one with the rose on it. Isn't it awesome? I love it. And then, let me come around here. Okay, trying to make sure I get that in the camera. So, a lot of patterns in here. Now the problem is, and I think I bought this at Michael's many years ago, but the copyright date is 1990. So they may not have this anymore. Now, that being said, Stoney Creek is known for having, at least from my experience from when I've looked on their site, they have a back catalog of their magazine copies, their issues. So they may very well still have this. So if you like these pictures, I would go to the Stoney Creek site and look that up. And a lot of the stash that I show you is older stuff, but that doesn't mean it's not still out there. Etsy, somebody may have this. eBay, you know, you can get a ton of stuff off of eBay for reasonable prices. This one, the stamped price on here is $5.50 US. So who knows? Okay, and oh, I forgot to show you this. So I'm getting a little bit more into beading. I bought some beads, and after I bought that memorabilia, I thought, I need to buy some more beads. I've done some beading, but I bought a bead mat so that they wouldn't roll all over the place. And I was kind of El Cheapo with it. I'm like, I don't want to buy it came with a case, but it was a little bit more than I wanted to pay. And I've got a box of extra CD jewel cases. So what I did was I bought the beading mat. This is a beading mat from Embroidery.com. And I just stuck it here in the jewel case. And what I did, it's sticky of course, but it comes with this plastic cover. So I just put that back on when I'm not using it, and then I can shut it and put it away and go about my business. So there you go. Okay, so my crazy craft tip for this time is good lighting. Now, those of us who have been stitching for a long time know that that good lighting is important. Good lighting is really important. But I wasn't really following my own rules there for a little bit. And when I started stitching on the letters from the north at 36 count, which I had not stitched on before, even though I've done 18 count Adas, something was different about the two. I was having a really hard time seeing it. And I have eye issues anyway. I have a lazy eye, which a lot of times, like on camera like this, I'm amazed that I'm doing this, because sometimes it can really show up on camera or in pictures. But I thought, I'm over it. I'm just over it. We'll just deal with it. But I have that on top of having to wear glasses, and now I have bifocals because I'm over 40. And a lot of times that's what happens when you are over 40. So I was struggling with the 36 count a bit. Well, I had taken it to work to stitch on after school because I have my cross stitching club, and once I get the kids going on what they're doing, I will sit there and stitch with them. And the lighting in the classroom, of course, is brighter than maybe what you might find in your home. And so I'm sitting there, I'm like, this is so much easier right now. Why is this so much easier? And then I thought later, I'm like, you doofus, it's because the lighting, you actually have good lighting. And so it's a little easier to stitch when you can actually see what you're doing. So I had to fuss at myself a little bit. And so I said, just make sure you turn your lights, your OT light on, and use that while you're stitching, and it won't be so hard. So had to learn my own lesson there. So if you are a newer stitcher and you're having a hard time seeing your fabric, you may just need to buy some extra lighting. And most stitchers do. They have like clip-on lights, or a light that you can sit by your chair in the living room, on the sofa, wherever you happen to be stitching. And it it makes a world of difference. So that's my crafty tip for today, is that you want to make sure you have good lighting. And it does prevent eye strain. And especially for those of us who already have eye issues other than aging, it is just really good to make sure that we have lighting that really helps support our crafting hobby. So there we go. And we'll end it right there. So that's what I have today. And again, I'm so happy that you joined me and that you're with me on this journey. We're learning more and more about our crafting, our cross stitching, and having so much fun with it along the way. So be blessed, be creative, and I'll see you next time.